Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Idiots in the Wild. First up we have, I held a Marine officer at gunpoint by At Your Mom's Apartment. That's not where it took place, that's the name of the OP. So I served in the Marines from 2009 to 2017. In 2014 we were deployed to a base in the Persian Gulf, and I was attached to 1st Tank Battalion Charlie Co. for security forces. I was a freshly promoted corporal, and as an Augment NCO non-commissioned officer, they didn't want to give me a squad, so I got a fire team instead. Our job was perimeter security as well as VCPs and PCPs, vehicle control points and personnel control points. Our base was kinda a big deal because we had an airstrip, and we were in charge of bombing the hell out of ISIS at the time. But the crown jewel of our flight line was 3 P-3 Orion sub-hunters. They still have, at the time, not sure if still true, top secret internals, cool stuff. On to the point of my story. I was in charge of the VCP that led into the flight line. We were mandated to check IDs and do occasional vehicle checks. Our VCP was also heavily armed. We had our rifles. I had a saw gunner in my team, that's a squad automatic weapon, so a machine gunner, and we had an MK-19 automatic grenade launcher up in a tower. Our deployment commander was a cool guy for an officer, he was a colonel, and he was strict when needed, laid back for everything else. His XO, a major, was a dick. In fact, for the story, he is now Major Dick. More of a compliment, really. Major Dick lived to be a dick to the security forces guys. He loved pulling rank. He loved playing tricks. We were all pretty tired of Major Dick. So on this day, I'm doing ID checks. My Marines are providing overwatch and all is well, until Major Dick pulls up in his car. I lean down to his window and start with, "Good afternoon, sir. I need to see your ID." His reply, "Don't you know who I am, devil dog? Now let me through. I'm late for a meeting." "Yep, he usually is." I reply with, "Understood, sir. I need to see your ID like every other day." So he hands it over. "Good. Next question. Do you have anything in your vehicle we need to know about?" This is where he fucks up. "Oh yeah, I have a sawed-off shotgun under my seat and 200 pounds of explosive wired in my trunk. I figured I'd drive it right onto the flight line." He laughs like it's a big joke. "Nope, not today. Sir, keep your hands where I can see them. Reach to the outside of your car door, open it, and step out." Now I have my rifle in his face. I'm pretty sure he crapped his pants and all my Marines have weapons trained on him and his car. Our saw gunner is moving to flank him even. Good kid. The Major starts losing it. "Do you know who I am? I told you I'm going to be late." I repeat my orders, but this time I add, "If you do not follow my orders, you will be detained or shot." I mean, surely the second one would accomplish the first one. Just saying. This gets his attention. He steps out, exactly as ordered. I ordered him to step away from the car and keep his hands in the air. Now down on the ground, arms wide, legs apart, one of my Marines frisks him, checks the vehicle. The other, our saw gunner, is covering all of this. The Major now realizes he messed up bad. I radio into our HQ and report what's going on. No weapons, no explosives, just to piss off. I radio into our HQ and report what's going on. No weapons, no explosives, just a pissed off and maybe pissed on, as in he pissed himself, Major, who was now about 15 minutes late to a meeting. Our Staff NCOIC, Staff Non-Commissioned Officer in Charge, is a grizzled old Master Gunnery Sergeant who comes over and clears the situation. He debriefs us, tells us we did good and no, it wasn't a drill, and the Major is an asshole, etc., etc. Well, about 5 minutes later, here comes the Colonel, with the Major in tow. The Colonel looks pissed. The Major looks smug. Here we fucking go. "Corporal, I'm told you held my XO at gunpoint for making a joke, is that true?" "No, sir." "Did you hold him at gunpoint?" "Yes, sir." "For what reason?" "Sir, the Major told me he was carrying a sawed-off shotgun and had explosives wired in the trunk, with intention to drive his vehicle onto the flight line. This is also where the Master Gunnery Sergeant stepped in and told the Major to, "With all due respect, sir, shut the fuck up." And he told the Colonel what was reported. Every other Marine was interviewed, the security camera footage was pulled and observed. Needless to say, the Major got an ass chewing from the Colonel and the Master Guns. Fast forward to the next day. Here comes the Major in his car. "Good morning, sir. ID, please. And do you have anything to report in your vehicle?" There was a pause. "No, Corporal." "Thank you, sir. Have a nice day." That was it. We never had any more issues with the XO for the tour. The Colonel never got back to us about it either. But the rest of the officers were very careful about how they acted around security forces for the rest of our time there. Sounds like you were doing a bloody bang-up job. Number 2. This is an RPG horror story. Is this story? "We Don't Discuss Politics" is a red flag, by Organic Fad. I just wrapped up and blocked a contact who was interested in an RPG with me, who was buried in red flags. Conflating anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. The real anti-Semitism is coming from the left. Absolutely loved the military, they could do no wrong. Was not deliberate the way I placed these stories, by the way. Very worried about random violent youth crime. Very interested in my personal definition of what a Nazi and fascist is. Also, enjoying this conversation with laughing emojis. All of the above was unprompted. The only thing I did tell him was that I wasn't a Nazi, in a conversation that brought up an interest in Norse mythology. And for me, the pinnacle of it all was, "We don't discuss politics at the table." Which, to me, that tells me something. Among all the other points that he mentioned, I think that was the guy's personal rule. I think that he insisted that everyone else follow that rule. Because when things touched on the topics above, he turned into Mr. "Where's your evidence?" Or like every single minor point, they don't want evidence. They really don't. Where's their evidence? They don't have any. And ignoring all the broader points to focus on small nitpicks. Yeah, nobody would want to discuss politics with anyone like that. Those people are garbage. Here's a few points that I wanted to fucking scream at him. I don't want to make my table a safe place for Nazis, communists, or fence-sitters. If you can't defend your beliefs, then you need better ones. If you need a rule against talking about a specific topic, then you're the one that needs to leave the table. To be transparent, I'm pretty much a communist. I just don't think we need a safe space. We can defend ourselves. Nazis are the ones that need safe spaces. If somebody makes a joke about sexual assault at my table, here's what would happen. The game would end that day. I would talk briefly with this person about how their joke made me uncomfortable. I would determine whether this is a pattern of behavior from someone careless, or if this is somebody who didn't know how to act in normal life. I would educate them if they are just stupid. But if this is a pattern of behavior by somebody careless or wicked, then they are never invited back. They're gone. I talked to everybody else at that table about how I'm very sorry that the behavior happened, and that I have outed them from the group. Now, if there is a rule against talking about that, then that means two things. One, the stupid will not make mistakes, and thus cannot learn from their own stupidity. I've been the stupid person. Those rules don't educate me. Experience does. Experience in having conversations with smarter people. Two, the careless and wicked never get the consequences for their careless and wicked behavior. They learn that if they can hide it, they are given an adequate camouflage. Neither is something I'm going to do. So yeah, if you have distasteful opinions, there's no rule against you displaying your shit to everyone else. And likewise, there's no rule against them telling you that your beliefs are shit. And I'm not going to tell you ahead of time so that you can soften the blow. Edit for context. All the games I've played have been with friends or emotionally mature people, or folks that I trust not to ruin the vibe by bringing up topics ad nauseum, or making people uncomfy for a joke. I don't be at tables with fascist sympathizers. Okie dokie, story number 3. A neighbor who was calling the police and constantly complaining about noise, by Vuja. So I had a neighbor in a side-by-side duplex. Our sides mirrored each other. The walls were fairly thin, but we could barely hear them. The basement only had a large particle board separating the two halves. The attic was also shared. We each had stairs going up to it, but it was an open space. It was a finished attic that looked like it used to be its own apartment. On our side was me, my wife, our 1-year-old, and our friend and her 3-year-old. I grew up in triple-decker apartments in the city. I was constantly obsessing over noise, making sure we were quiet within reason and still being able to live normally. For our neighbors, soon after we moved in, they were calling the landlord to complain about noises. One, they could hear us walking. How dare you! Saying it always sounded like we were stomping in heels. 2, they said they could hear people going up and down the stairs all night in the middle of the night. The only thing awake in the night was my cat. 3, the TV at moderate volume was too loud. The worst noise complaint came a few months during the winter. They called the landlord to complain they were hearing footsteps in the attic at all points of the day. It's a ghost. They claimed we had someone living in the attic. We did not. It was winter, so that was probably an animal that got up there to stay warm. We tried to talk to them, but they wouldn't respond. Eventually, the landlord told them to stop and gave them our numbers with our okay, so they reach out directly. For all the noise they complained about, they had a televangelist playing a TV in the basement 24/7. It never turned off. The police. They called the police twice on us. First time was about 5 a.m. My wife had to leave early that day. It was winter. She was going in and out of the house, packing the car. At one point, she was coming down from the second floor with our 1-year-old, slipped and fell down the stairs. She just slid down them on her butt. No thumping, thankfully. Aside from the kid crying, everyone was okay. She eventually left. About 20 minutes later, 2 police officers showed up. The neighbors called in a noise complaint, and it sounded like I was beating my family. Trying to explain that your wife and baby fell down the stairs doesn't go over well. Luckily, our friend confirmed that happened and the police left. The second time they called the police was a month or so later. About 2 a.m. Our friend's 3-year-old had a tantrum in the middle of the night. It lasted all of 5 minutes. He calmed down quick and went back to bed. Not long after, the police were at our door because they got a complaint of a kid in distress. We explained what was going on, and one of them said, "Seriously, we got called here for that?" "Okay, we'll just take your information and we'll head out." As soon as the lease was up, we moved out. Story number 4. Strange and condescending manager. I've known for a long time that I've got a complicated relationship with one of my managers. I'll call them X. They are caring, funny, but sometimes also irritable. They treat me like a kid, and had no issue with talking about my personal business in front of others. I used to trust them and look up to them more. I have problems with boundaries, and I find X very intimidating. I can't report them because most of these incidents happened ages ago, and it wouldn't be fair to bring them up now. One time I wanted to go upstairs of the shop floor for some privacy to talk about a certain topic, but they just took me to the side, so we were still visible, didn't tell me why we couldn't go upstairs for privacy, and upon me talking to her, I felt like they spoke to me like a child. They kept repeating a phrase I was saying as if they were mimicking me, and that was the only way I could address the person I was complaining about. I felt very infantilized. By the next morning, I spoke up in the huddle about something that they responded with that a child wouldn't have knowledge about. They said I was 100% correct, meaning she agreed, seeing how confusing and draining this is. Another day, they moved me to a different till, as is the norm sometimes at work. But an hour later, they came back and asked me in an irritated way why I was on that till. I put that down to brain fog and distress, as obviously they're human too, but I still feel disrespected. One shift, when I literally just got where I needed to work, and my shift was just starting, they gave me advice to not let customers take baskets of clothes into the fitting rooms. When I literally just got there, so that would have been impossible. I would have told them that, but I was caught off guard, bewildered as fuck, and unfortunately, I have a stutter which flares up around people who make me uncomfortable. An example I'm not as bothered about is they pulled me upstairs to their office unexpectedly and started asking me personal questions, like if anything was going on at home. They do know I don't have the best home life anyway, but I was just blindsided by this. I'm sorry, where's the part where they're a nice person? You mentioned that at the beginning. They sound like just a massive dick. Thing is, I really do get they're trying to help and get to the bottom of things. I'm sure they want you to think that. But they brought me upstairs because I was taking a bit longer on tills than usual. See, that's concern trolling. That's what that's called. God forbid I be careful with how I handle money, I guess. Then I told them I need to focus. They basically told me focus but not take as long, which really shocked me because, again, I didn't think I was taking that long. It's not like I take a million years to sort things out, I don't. I've been pulled up by my managers before, not her, and we have all reached the conclusion I need to focus more. So it's like I'm being told two different things. I always dread going upstairs if I need a minute away from tills, and if I bump into them in the lift, because they always ask me what's wrong, and they never drop it. They just give me this emotionless stare. I'm aware it could be resting bitch face, or just bitch in general, and I know from their nature they don't mean to make anyone uncomfortable. But it just makes me uncomfortable. Like, let me deal with my feelings how I want. Honestly, they sound arrogant and controlling to me. I don't always want to talk to someone about it. Luckily, this happens less, as I used to worry if this happened too much. I would get told by one of the managers that they'll let me go, because I'm not cut out for this job emotionally. Always been beating myself up for being too sensitive. Never liked that I'm not thick-skinned. I think I'm getting better at it. All the incidents I can think about that I described in this paragraph were a few years ago. I'm not proud of this one at all. One time a few years ago, I swore while explaining myself to an incredibly frustrating customer who just kept antagonizing me. I was rightfully given a talking to by another manager. No, not rightfully. You're human. People should not be antagonizing you while you're doing your job. That manager was out of line. And one of them was actually more sympathetic towards me because she knew I was having a horrible day. Yeah, and fucking customers make it worse. Everyone could tell I regretted and was extremely upset that I said what I said. A few months later, X saw me enter a room to get a piece of equipment, and they were having a meeting with a colleague who I'm friends with. They saw I was looking awkward and instantly asked me what's the matter, and to get them to drop it because I wanted to get it over with, I told them I had an awful customer. This manager then asked me how I dealt with it and straight up fucking asked me if I swore at them. They said it in a very casual tone, oblivious to how they sounded. They know how they sounded. You're giving them way too much benefit of the doubt. Just so we're clear, they're the idiot in this story, not you. That's not how we do things. I was so angry and humiliated that taking advantage of your trusting nature to act really, really shitty. I should have asked them why they were asking me that, but I did not want to cause a scene in front of my friend. I didn't report this because I was extremely ashamed of that incident with the frustrating customer, and it really did hurt me to think that the managers gossip about all of us behind our backs about our issues. I've long since accepted they do, unfortunately. Once someone says something to them, it's basically a free-for-all. In fact, the most recent incident, they refused to let me go upstairs because I needed to be more resilient and breathe. Well, bear in mind, the customer who lost her shit at me got incredibly rude, all because I didn't understand her. She kept humiliating me in front of a manager and pointing out how my manager understood, but I didn't. Began banging on about how, if you were to come to my country, as if it was really that deep. There was no excuse to rip someone to shreds just because you're asked to repeat something. I was in shock. I've not had a nasty customer like that in ages. I usually get good feedback from customers and colleagues. I'm friendly and provide options if need be. The item the customer wants wasn't available. And I don't cause arguments, but I got that horrible devil woman. I wasn't the only colleagues on the till who heard that woman. She was ranting loudly, and my colleagues next to me were on my side. One of them was gently telling me not to cry, and the other called a manager, telling them I was really upset. X wasn't there. They did not see it, but they refused to let me go upstairs. I had been humiliated and interrupted for several minutes. The manager who did help me with that customer was there, so I assume what went on was talked about. I don't know, and still X refused to let me go upstairs. All the other managers have done or advised me to wait for them in the lift area and let me go get a drink, but not them. Oh no, apparently I'm the problem. X also said to me, "I know you're dealing with a lot at home," which I never told the other manager standing there, so again, feels like X has no issue airing my business I've talked about to her with others. I am at a total loss as to why I didn't report any of this. I was sickened, humiliated, angry, and clearly very upset. One time X saw me upset whilst maintaining an area. They asked me what's wrong. I gave them a very obvious, polite hint. I did not want to talk about it. Surprise, surprise, they kept on pushing. Laughed and just asked me, so what is thinking about another pet peeve of mine mentioning my name and talking about me in the third person whilst also talking to me? Makes me feel so infantilized. Yeah, because they can't relate to you as an adult. Do they do it to other people? They sound like the kind of person who would. This was ages ago too, so I don't remember what's happened. I've had good moments with X, but I really don't like them either. I feel kinda validated because I've spoken to another colleague I'm close to, and she also feels weird about X. There we go. So there you go, lots of evidence I need to stop being such a pussy and report them. But I have anxiety, crippling. I'm a people pleaser. I try not to rock the boat. I tell myself, oh, just ignore it. They aren't worth the time. You reported these colleagues and they didn't apologize, and last time I actually did report a manager. Then that manager began talking to me about that. I was sweating bullets. I was shitting bricks. They weren't even unprofessional about it. They explained their point of view and apologized. I even felt bad. Wish I didn't. I'm such a people pleaser, and I hate it. Oh, don't worry, it's fixable. I know I need to get a backbone. Today I called X over to help me with the situation because I wasn't sure how to deal with it. They were the only manager available. I was kind of worried they would follow me to get the item the customer needed. They've done that before, despite me having no trouble doing that. But when I got back and I finished the transaction, X was nowhere to be found. Suddenly they showed up, kept asking me all these questions, and I couldn't get any of my words out, so I felt like shit. I was having a bad shift anyway, so I had a little cry to myself and then just soldiered on with the rest of my shift. They overwhelm me, and I feel like they get too involved in situations that don't concern them. I know it's from a place of care, but it's just too much and too intense. And they treat me like a child, even though I stopped going to them with my issues ages ago. Sorry if I'm a bit winded. I had to quickly run downstairs and grab my other SD card. No, I genuinely don't think they're the good person. I think they like to act like a good person. I think they've definitely got you convinced they're a good person, and maybe some other people as well. They sound like a manipulator to me, someone very controlling. That's terrible behavior. I think someone with any self-awareness might realize that a desire to help can become controlling behavior if you're not aware. I've found myself in situations where I've really wanted to help someone, then I've eventually realized I think I sound too controlling here, so I've learned to then step back and just leave people to it unless they ask me for advice. And that's something I've gotten much better at, because in my case it does come from a desire to be helpful. But at the end of the day, unless someone wants your help, you can't help them. That's not what this sounds like. It sounds like someone who feels the need to control everything, and that's their own mental damage that they need to deal with. That's not on you. It's good that you're not going to them with problems anymore, and wouldn't really engage with them any more than you have to. I don't think it's that you're not cut out for retail. I think it's that maybe there's another retail job out there for you with hopefully better management, because what you have there doesn't sound great. Alright, fifth and final story. How to deal with influencers who ask to be paid an exposure. Take them to the Arctic, strip their clothes off, and leave them to it. By the amazing Luke. I run a small fitness consultancy business, have done for the past few years. Since setting up, I've largely relied on word of mouth for most of my business, so I typically don't have to deal with a lot of difficult clients. But I recently had a run-in with a woman who's genuinely made my blood boil. The woman, let's call her Gigi for the sake of anonymity, sent me a DM a few weeks ago. Said she was looking to lose weight and tighten up her physique for the summer. Gigi didn't really fit my usual client demographic, usually 30s or 40s. She was young, mid-20s, and boasted a decent follower count. seemed to be a local influencer of some description. This piqued my interest. I thought perhaps I could benefit from her connections to boost my business somewhat. How wrong I was. The initial consultation over text was pretty standard. I asked her some details about her past exercise history, diet, etc., before getting to work on her meal and exercise plan. Then it moved to the matter of payment. I had mentioned pretty early on that I typically charge $50 for my plans, but either she didn't read that or she read it, or decided to feign willful ignorance. When I reminded her of the price, she said, and I quote, "I was wondering whether you'd be interested in getting yourself some exposure instead of payment." I hate to say it, but at the time I was seriously thinking of taking her up on her offer. However, after talking to some of my friends, I snapped out of it, "You have good friends," resolving to be firm with the price instead, which she accepted, albeit somewhat begrudgingly. Looking back on it now, I'm kind of stunned she genuinely expected me to give it to her for free, but I guess that's how the influencer economy works these days. That's how the shit ones think it works. The plan consisted of exercises and recipes mainly designed around helping her lose weight. Usually I advise most of my clients to try and maintain light to moderate calorie deficits. Not only is this overall healthier, less muscle loss, they tend to suck a lot less than dramatic calorie reductions, so we're easier to maintain in the long run. I explained all this to Gigi. She said that she understood it meant progress wouldn't be immediate, and as such, I thought we were on the same page. A week later, I woke up at 5 a.m. to an Instagram call from Gigi. I didn't even know you could call people on Instagram, neither did I. And now that I know, I'll promptly forget it. Half awake, I picked up the phone.
"You're a fucking scammer! You think this shit's some kind of joke?"
I was still in a daze, so I weakly asked her what was going on.
"I just weighed in after a week on your bullshit plan. I'm up half a fucking pound."
I asked her to slow down and breathe. Does she not know that weight generally will fluctuate? Okay, whatever. I asked her to slow down and breathe, which seemed to calm her down, albeit temporarily. I explained to her that we'd been through this before, and weight loss isn't a linear process, and that scale measurements can be offset from anything from water weight, clothes, time of day, size of your fucking ego, etc. Maybe not that last one. Maybe.
"You're just covering your fucking ass. Cut the bullshit right now."
Oh well, I tried. Guess you can't talk sense into an unstable influencer at 5 a.m.
"I've got a swimwear collaboration I need to shoot this week, and you fucking lied to me. Your plan didn't fucking work."
Such a potty mouth. Influencer to English translation. I successfully got something for free. Now I need to rip into you for something I didn't get for free. Bear in mind this girl is by no means overweight. Her BMI was already comfortably within the healthy range. But I guess an influencer's work is never done. On the verge of tears, she continued.
"Do you know how fucked I am?"
Hopefully not a lot. I'd hate to think someone like this has a boyfriend. Or a girlfriend.
"I followed your plan to the fucking letter and..."
Okay, just lots of cursing. We get the idea. Based on her tone and the time of the morning she called, she was almost definitely on the receiving end of 3 or 4 margaritas, comfortably, which definitely wasn't in the plan. But I didn't feel like pointing out the obvious. An hour later, she messaged me again, still unhinged but slightly more coherent. "Refund me immediately and post a public statement on your page admitting your plan doesn't work and that I was right to call you out. Do it by noon or I start tagging every local gym and every brand that has ever worked with you." I sat with that for a minute. Then an idea came to mind. I refunded the $50 within the hour and posted the following word for word as requested on my business page. Public statement as requested by Gigi's handle. I refunded the client in full. My standard plan prioritizes sustainable moderate deficits and long-term adherence rather than dramatic one-week scale drops. The client reported following the plan to the fucking letter and still gained 0.5 pounds in 7 days. Therefore, by the client's own stated metric and timeline, The plan did not produce the immediate results she required for her swimwear shoot. She was correct to call this out. For context, we both live in a small, tight-knit city where everyone knows each other, particularly in the business community. I wanted to make sure any other potential brand collaborators knew who they were dealing with. I left it at that, no extra commentary, no screenshots, no mention of the 5 a.m. call, the margaritas, the original request for free work, or the fact that she was already in the healthy BMI range. By lunch, the post had been screenshotted and circulated in a few local gyms. People started asking the obvious questions under her posts. She tried to walk it back. "He twisted my words." Then deleted her original rant, then went quiet. I hope you screen capped that. The collab still happened. From the photos that went up, the half-pound gain was invisible. My page, meanwhile, picked up a small but steady stream of new inquiries from people who specifically said they wanted the boring, sustainable version. I never heard from Gigi again. It's just like the saying goes, exposure is a dish best served cold. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Big thanks to everyone who allowed me to use their stories. If you'd like to support the channel, you can sign up for my Patreon page, linked for you in the description. That'll give you early access to the videos on Monday, wherever you're comfortable supporting. There's also a link to my merchandise store over on Teespring, as well as my Discord server, my Threads account, and my Gmail is kingofthecities@gmail.com if you need to contact me. That's everything for now, so until next time, thank you very much for watching, and take very good care of yourselves. Bye-bye.